Hi, 7th graders. Today we're going to do section 9.5, areas of similar figures. We've got to go back and remember what exactly are similar figures. Remember, similar figures have to have congruent corresponding angles. That's what gives them the same shape. Also, another rule for similar figures is that the sides have to be proportional, that they have to have the same ratio. And also, common ratios, something new that we're learning, have a common ratio for their areas too. So these are the three things that we must have to have similar figures. Congruent corresponding angles, corresponding sides that are proportional, which means they have the same ratio, and also the same ratio for the areas of the two figures. That's what makes them similar. So we're going to take a moment, just kind of look at the proof, which explains why we can work with similar figures the way we are going to today. And then we'll get into actually how to use this. So let's take a look at this. The formula for the similar figures is A1, which stands for area 1, over area 2. This is our ratio for the common areas. And the rule says that it's going to be equal to the square of the sides, our ratio of our sides. So the ratio of the area is equal to the square of the ratio of the sides. So here's the proof. We've got a figure here. We've got similar rectangles, okay? Now we're going to go ahead and find the area first of the first one. So 2 times 5 is 10, and the area of the second one is 6 times 15, which is 90. Now we're going to go ahead and take the ratio of them. We're going to put the ratio of the first one over the ratio of the second and then reduce the ratio, and you'll notice we have 1/9. Now to prove how this works, we're going to take the ratio of the area and we're going to set it equal to the sides. And I'm going to show you that it doesn't matter which sides we use. We can go ahead and take the bottom ones, put them over each other and square it and reduce it, and you'll notice we get 1/9 equals 1/9. We can do the same with the sides of the shorter sides. And we can take the ratio 2/6, and then reduce it down to 1/3, square it, and you notice that they're the same. So this proves that this formula for the ratios is correct. We can work with similar figures. So now what do we do with this? Let's look at some examples. Okay. So here's our first example here. It says find the area of the first of the two similar figures if the second has an area of 100 feet. Okay, this is all we're given. Okay, and then what they tell us in here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to use our formula. We know it's true. We just proved it. So now we're going to start substituting in the information. What do I know about the area of the first? Well, the area of the first is what we're trying to find. They give us the area of the second, which is 100. So I'm going to put that into my ratio. And then the next is I'm going to put in the ratio for the sides. I have to be very careful though that I don't switch the ratios around. If I am calling this figure 1, I got to make sure that I'm using 12 as the side for figure 1. So remember, all my figure 1s are in the top. We used the second one as 100, so the second side is going to be 6. Now the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to reduce this fraction that I have. So once I reduce it down, how many times does 6 go into 12? 2. And technically it's 2/1, but that 1 we're just going to ignore because we know it. Any whole number has a 1 underneath it. And so now, what does my equation say? I have to then square that. So I end up with A1 over 100 equals 4, or 4/1. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to cross multiply. We're going to go 4 times 100 equals 1 times A1. Do the math here, and we get our answer to be 400 feet squared. That is the area of this first figure. So this one's 400. And the second one they gave us in our problem was 100. We were able to use that formula to find that. Okay, let's go on to another example here. Okay? The second example says find the length of a large rectangle if the areas are 150 and 60 respectively. Okay, so we only know one side, but what else did they give us? They gave us the area. So we're going to call this figure 1 of 150 and figure 2 had 60. Now we're going to put this back into our equations here. Here's our standard equation. Now let's substitute them in. So I know the area of the first is 150 and the area of the second is 60. I do not know the side length of the first one. That's what I'm trying to find, but I do know the side length of the second is 6. Now we're going to follow the steps just like we did above. Reduce my fraction first. 60 can go into 150 2.5 times. It's okay to get a decimal. Reduce it down as much as we can as long as it comes out to be a nice even decimal. We don't want a decimal that continues on and on. If we can't do that, just reduce the fraction as much as you can. We could have actually left this, reduced it down to 5 over 2. That would work too. You don't necessarily have to divide it into a decimal. It's whatever you're comfortable with. Now we're going to go ahead and do our work. Okay, we're going to cross multiply again. And so I do S1 and I get 1. And then I cross multiply and do 2.5 times 36. Multiply it out and I get S1 squared equals 90. The problem is I got a square. I don't want side 1 squared. I need just side 1. So how do I undo a square? Remember, I take the square root of it. So take the square root of both sides. What I do to one side, I have to do the other. I'm left with S1. And remember, this is a decimal that continues on and on. It's an irrational number. So I'm going to round it to the hundreds here. And so roughly my answer is 9.5 for the side 1. Now I'm going to show you quickly how to do this problem if I didn't divide it out to 2.5 and I left it as 5 over 2. I'm going to have my problem look like this. That's okay. We're just going to go ahead and cross multiply again. And I get 5 times 36 equals 2 times S1 squared. Okay, now remember I want S1 squared all by itself. So I'm going to divide this side by 2 and this side by 2. My 2's cancel out, giving me S1 squared here. And now we're going to do the math. I do 5 times 36, which equals 180. Now divide it by 2, and I get 90. Now we're going to continue on just like we did over here. Take the square root of both sides to cancel out my square. I get S1 and roughly 9.5. So either way works, whether we get it down to a decimal that it ends, or we can leave it in fraction form. Okay, let's see how you did. Let's do some examples. Okay, so look at the example here. It says find the area of the similar figures given the area of the other. Okay, what's my equation again? My equation is A1 over A2 for the area. And then I got S1 over S2 squared. Okay, so what did they give me? Well, it looks like they gave me the ratio of the sides. So let's put those in. S1 they said was 27. S2 is 18. I got to square it because that's part of my equation. And then I have A1 and A2. What does my problem give me? My problem gives me the area of A2, so that means it has to go on the bottom. I'm trying to find the area of 1. So what's the next thing I need to do? I need to go ahead and reduce my fraction. Okay, what goes into both 27 and 9? So I just gave you the answer. How about 9? So 9 goes into 27 3 times. 18 and 9 is 2 here. Okay, I still have to have this squared. It's part of my equation. Now we're going to actually square it. So I got A1 over 90 still. What is 3 squared? 3 squared is 9. 2 squared, I got to do the squaring of the bottom too. I can't forget that. So 2 squared is 4. There we go. Now we're going to cross multiply. So 4 times A1 equals 9 times 90. Okay, divide by 4. My A1 is left. Sorry. Yes, A1 is left. And so now we're going to go 9 times 90, which is 810, divided by 4, gives me 202.5. And we've got to attach our units, which is centimeters. Okay, let's go ahead and do example 2 there, real quick. My equation, stick everything in. This time they give me this A1. So I have 153. I'm trying to find A2. I'm going to use the same sides here. So side 1 was 27, side 2 was 18, and I have to square it. 153 over A2 stays the same. And then I have to reduce my fraction. That reduces down to 3 over 2 again. Square it, I get 153, and I get 9 over 4 once again. Cross multiply, so I get 4 times 153 equals 9 times A2. Divide by my 9. So I end up with 4 times 153 gives me 612. Divide it by 9 gives me 68, and attach my units again as centimeters. So that's how I can find the missing area. Let's do 2 more problems, and this is when I need to actually find the side lengths. So here we go. Here's our figure. Our figures have given us the area for both of them. And for problem number 1 here, they gave us the side length for side 2. So our equation once again is area 1 over area 2 equals side 1 over side 2 squared. So put in the information they gave us. For number 1, they gave us side 2 is 16. I'm trying to find side 1, so that's squared. Now, if this was side 2, that means this is going to be figure 2. So 85 has to go in the bottom, and 75 goes on top. Okay, this one is a little bit different here. Okay, so let's first reduce the fraction. 75 over 85. What goes into both of those? Well, how about 5? 75 divided by 5 is 15. 85 divided by 5 gives me 17. Okay, so now I am going to go ahead and I am going to square 16. It's going to be a big number, but that's okay. So once I square it, I get S1 squared, and 16 squared gives me 256. I got rid of the squares. Now we're just going to cross multiply. So 15 times 256 equals 17 times S1 squared. Divide by 17 both sides to cancel out that. And so let's do our math here. 256 times 15 gives me 3,840. Divided by 17 gives me 225.88. Let's call it 0.8 and 0.9. Okay, then I have S1 squared. How do I get rid of the square? That's right, take the square root of both sides. So once I do that, I get S1. I'm going to use my calculator to figure out what the square root of 225.9 is. And I end up with 15.02. And 9, it continues on, so we're going to say roughly it's 15. Okay, now one more time, let's try it. So same equation. Okay, now side 1 over side 2 squared. What do they give me? This time they give me S2 again, which is 5. I'm trying to find S1. And the area, once again, is 75 over 85. Remember, I got to square this side. and reduce this fraction. So I end up with 15 over 17 and S1 squared. 5 squared is 25. Cross multiply. Divide by my 17 to cancel out. Left with S1 squared on this side. Do the math. 15 times 25 divided by 17 gives me 22.05. Take the square root of each of them. And I end up with 4.69. We'll say that is 4.7 once we round. Okay, boys and girls, I hope that makes more sense to you. If you got any questions, post it on Google or email me. Have a good afternoon. Bye.